Well, welcome everybody to this session. I'm going to encourage everybody to update their name tag if you haven't already. You can add your name of your organization, your pronouns, and we are trying to get you one of our standards for excellence self-assessments in the chat. So we'll be doing that. You can keep an eye out for that. We don't need it right this second, but we'll keep an eye out for that. And if you just want to add to the chat, where you happen to be working today, that might be fun to have a chance to see that and hear your folks. So as Kate said, the session is called Being Poised for Significantly Growing Your Impact and Reach, Embrace Standards for Excellence. And whether you've just joined your organization, maybe your organization is brand new, or maybe you've been fighting the good fight on behalf of the mission of your organization for over a quarter century like me. For many of us, the needs are greater right now and we are working hard to keep up the best that we can. For some of us, for most of us, we have a really full plate right now. You're probably extremely busy, crazy busy, as I like to say, working hard to meet the needs and to help your organization and to help that organization meet its mission. I read an article a couple weeks back that said every day feels like Thursday because we're working so much that even those weekend days feel like a weekday because we're working around the clock. So nonprofit leaders nonprofit leaders' lives are filled with board meetings and preparation for events, likely virtual events. We're sending out receipts to donors and meeting grant deadlines. We're talking with potential board members and even onboarding individuals, lobbying the state legislature, which will be in full force in just a few weeks. And these days, one Zoom meeting after another. It's definitely enough to make you feel exhausted and maybe make you want to pull your hair out a little bit. And do you ever wonder, in the midst of it all, is your organization poised for growth? So thumbs up using the reactions on your screen if you feel like your organization is poised for growth. Okay, got some hands raised. Good. Good. So the needs that you're meeting today are great, and the individuals you serve matter, and they deserve the very best. You need to make sure that your organization is fit and ready to meet the needs of today, and then next week, and the week after that, and the month after that, and the years to come as well. So if you don't take the time to ensure your organization is healthy and sustainable, your mission and the very people that you serve may suffer. So now's the time. Today is a good day to start and to think about how your organization measures up. And today's a day to come up with, to find out how your actions can help to propel your own organization to the next level. So our objectives today for this session are to consider how you can put your organization in a position to be ready for growth opportunities. We're also going to identify the components of the Standards for Excellence program, to define the 6 main areas and 27 sub areas that comprise the program, and identify the most challenging standards and discover ways to implement these standards in our work. Just a couple guidelines: encourage you to mute yourself if you're not talking, to type your questions in the chat. Whoops, here we go. And please participate. We're going to have some, we'll have a couple different opportunities to place information in the chat. We'll have some polls. We'll share some links, and we'll be doing the Zooming as we have been doing throughout the day. If you run into any difficulties, please send a chat to our tech hosts today, which are Kate Hall, accreditation manager of the Standards for Excellence, and also Jeff Pollard, who is a nonprofit management and governance intern from the University of Baltimore. So thanks to both of you, and that's a great place to go ahead and chat your questions. So let's see who's in the room today. I think people have already mentioned their cities, where they're located, but let's just do a little brief poll just so we can get a good idea of the organizations that you work with. So if you could fill out this poll. Do you see it on your screen? You could shake your head if you see it on the screen. Great, thanks.
Yeah, Amy.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'll give you a few more minutes.
It looks like the poll closed out. And there are the results that we have.
Thanks, Kate. So we've got folks who are representing human services, education, arts and culture. Some of us are representing multi-purpose, multi-mission missions in many different areas. And then our budget sizes are varied from under 50,000 to all the way up to 10 million. So thanks so much. And then our last question today was about involvement with the Standards for Excellence program. And we've got folks just starting out to learn. We've got folks who are seal holders, recognized organizations, and folks in the house today who have used some of our resources. So that is terrific. Thanks so much. Sorry if you weren't able to complete the whole poll, but there'll be other chances in our session today, so not to worry. All right, I'm going to stop sharing the results and move along. So as we've been talking as we have discussed in earlier sessions today, there's opportunities for growth right now. There's a lot of needs and many nonprofits are expanding their program areas. Many organizations are expanding the organizations that they partner with. I feel like I saw some burgeoning partnerships just through the chat earlier today, which is crazy, super exciting. Lots of growth and new opportunities. We're bringing on new leaders, whether they're staff leaders or board leaders or volunteer leaders. And we know a lot of organizations are also really focused on their opportunities for growing their funding, whether that funding is from public, such as through ARPA, or even private funders as well. Everybody who wasn't able to complete the poll, not to worry, not graded at all. So the nonprofit sector, as you know, it's a diverse group. We represent really large organizations, really small organizations, churches and hospitals and schools. We represent environmental groups and developers and preservationists and conservationists, social service organizations that we are working to fulfill all different kinds of needs throughout the country. We mentioned earlier that there are about 30,000 nonprofits in Maryland. If you look around the whole country, it's over 1.5 million registered nonprofit organizations. So that might feel a little overwhelming. Like, what can we do to show that our small organization or not so small organization is ready to embrace this growth? So my bet is that many of you are anticipating new opportunities through private and public funders, and that you're thinking, I'm going to apply for this new grant, or I'm going to apply for this ARPA funding, or I'm going to apply for this through a municipality that I may have not been able to apply before. And so you're probably finding yourself in a situation where you're reaching out to folks who have never, ever heard of your organization before. So I'm just going to encourage you to put yourself in their shoes. The shoes of folks who have not heard of your organization, or maybe have heard about your organization years ago or in passing, but they're not super familiar with you, the leadership of your organization, your mission, and the important work that you do. So likely these organizations are going to look for different kinds of things. They want to know that you're an organization that has your act together. So what can you do to show that you've got your act together? And to show this potential private or public funder that this unknown organization is deserving of its trust and support. So some of the kinds of things that we anticipate are that folks will be looking up to confirm that you are in fact a charitable nonprofit. You have 501c3 status. So they might go to the Internal Revenue Service to check that out. There's this great resource called the Master File of Exempt Organizations. I might check that out to see if you are in fact a charitable nonprofit. This is a call to organizations to use the name that your organization used when it received its tax exempt status, so that if somebody were to look you up, they could say, oh yes, this organization is a charitable nonprofit. It's a 501c3 organization. We also know that nonprofits across the board are filing this annual tax form called the Form 990. And there's different versions of this form. Of course, there's the full version, there's the easy version for groups who are a little bit smaller, and there's the 990N, which is for smaller organizations yet, that's filed electronically and is super brief. But you definitely need to make sure that you are filing that every year for a variety of reasons. Of course, if you fail to file it for 3 years in a row, you'll automatically have your tax exemption revoked, which you certainly don't want to happen. But so you should make sure that you've got that filed each year and make sure it's available for folks. Many organizations, I know Maryland Nonprofits has a special part on our website where we have our annual report posted. You can also see the last several years of our Form 990. I'd also encourage you to make sure that you've got an annual report in place, that you have a report that showcases your mission, your program activities for the last year, your financial report for the last year, and your key leaders for your organization, like board leaders and staff leaders for your organization. I would also encourage everybody to make sure that their GuideStar profile is up to date. GuideStar is offered by an organization called Candid. Candid is a merger of the Foundation Center and GuideStar. And GuideStar offers the opportunity for nonprofits to populate their profile. And for many, many folks, GuideStar is the first place that someone who has never heard of your organization will turn. So we certainly encourage you to do that. And I'm going to ask Kate, if you don't mind, a couple of weeks ago, representative from GuideStar, oh, there it is, thanks, Connor, was able to give a briefing on one of our member meetings about how to populate your profile on GuideStar. And so there's a link to the recording of that. We've put that in the chat for you, just in case you'd like to see that. And then certainly a great way for you to show the public that you deserve their support is to go through our rigorous Standards for Excellence program to earn our accreditation, showing that you have implemented all of the performance indicators in the Standards for Excellence code, which we'll talk about in a bit. And we also offer something called Standards for Excellence recognition, which focuses on specific standards that are where you don't have to focus on every one of the 67 standards. You can focus on basics for governance, specific governance standards, as well as standards around those legal requirements. So, so you've got that opportunity as well to go for standards accreditation or standards recognition. Now, we know that Neil did a great job in the session just prior to this, talking about ARPA and all the different types of funding. I think it was really interesting to me that we have had some municipalities reach out to us and ask for advice on what that grants process should look like for ARPA for municipalities and counties that maybe are not generally used to making grants to nonprofit organizations. So they reached out to us and said, you know, what should that process look like? And we've been working to come up with a model ARPA grants process. And so we've been reviewing the guidance from the federal government about that, which encourages things like to look to confirm that the organization is a state 3, to look to make sure the filings are up to date, like your state business registration, as well as your fundraising registration, and that your property taxes are up to date or that you've got exemption on those, and that you're responding to health or economic impacts of COVID-19. And then the last one is this: appropriate financial management controls are in place to manage federal awards. So that's a kind of a big thing, a big statement. And it kind of makes you think, what would we need to say for that? And I think if you're looking at the different publicly available documents and things like that for an organization that has not potentially managed federal awards before, you know, one place to turn is this idea that, you know, you can look at that Form 990, which illuminates a lot of different standards or benchmarks around financial management and controls. So that 990 will talk about things like how the independence of your board members. There's a question, how many board members do you have and how many of them are independent? There's a question about, has your board reviewed the 990 in advance? There's a question about whether your organization has a conflict of interest policy and whether and how you carry that out, questions about compensation policies, the independence of your auditors, whether you have a whistleblower policy, and how you deal with expense reimbursement as well. It also looks at has questions about financial policies too. Now, these kind of governance and management questions that are on the 990 are not necessarily codified in the law, but if you talk to folks as you're filling out your 990, the advice is be able to check yes that you do all of these things, right? You want to be able to say, yes, my board reviewed my 990. Yes, we have a really careful way of handling conflicts of interest. Yes, we've got a whistleblower policy in place. So these are items that I think we all want to make sure that we keep up with and that we're able to answer yes on that 990 for those items. Again, back to that, particularly if you're interested in going for some of this ARPA funding, particularly from the counties and the municipalities, there will be questions about how your organization is uniquely qualified or uniquely situated to reach the communities that are most in need. And I think that one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is the idea that nonprofits in many cases are uniquely qualified to reach these communities, potentially even more qualified than the governments in many cases, because of our nimble ability to just really connect with the communities that have needs and that and providing these services to those potentially that are hardest to serve in our communities. And so you'll need to be in a position where you can describe this work in these areas and describe the individuals who are participating in your programs. If you are one of those groups who ends up being approved for ARPA funds, of course, you're going to need to provide descriptions and you're going to need to describe your accomplishments, and that will all be determined and shared with you down the road. So in sum, when we're thinking about these, how can you put your best foot forward? How can you put yourself in the shoes of folks who've never heard of you before, but that you want to make a perfect and great impression? Do things like make sure your 990 is available. Of course, that means you need to make sure you file it and all that good stuff. Make sure that's available. Make sure your filings are up to date with, all the different state agencies that you need to have filings with. Publish your annual report and make sure that is available and easy to find. Update that GuideStar profile. Maybe you haven't done it in a little bit of time. We run into lots of organizations who will even say, I'm not even sure how to log into GuideStar anymore. The person who updated it has long gone in our organization. Well, there's a way that you can go ahead and get the password for that and to describe how you're one of the leaders of the organization, have that access. And then we encourage you to apply for Standards for Excellence accreditation or Standards for Excellence recognition, one of those tiers as well. So let's turn a bit and talk briefly about that Standards for Excellence program. The program whose goals are to strengthen nonprofit organizations and then also to help the public's trust of the nonprofit organizations and the sector as well. And we do this by helping to educate nonprofits, helping organizations to assess themselves, helping organizations to implement policies and practices across the board and through accreditation and recognition as well. So at Maryland Nonprofits, and Maryland Nonprofits is the founder of the Standards for Excellence. We got everything started in the 90s even, believe it or not. I'm really grateful because I've had this great chance to work with the Standards for Excellence program since the beginning. And the program has changed and evolved quite a bit over the years. But we have always had at our core this interest in strengthening nonprofits and improving the public's trust. And our current components of the program include the Standards for Excellence and Ethics and Accountability Code for the nonprofit sector. It also includes educational resources, accreditation and recognition. And then we also do some work to increase public awareness around how well-managed, responsibly governed nonprofits operate. So we are offering these programs on an ongoing basis. If you wanted to see a copy of the Standards for Excellence code, our link to the code is provided on this slide, and we could probably put that in the chat as well if you wanted to check that out. And you can also download it to your phone. So we've got a Standards for Excellence mobile app It's a free download. It is not the most high tech and fancy app you have ever seen in your life, but it does have the content of the code so that if you are, let's say, at a board meeting, and I wonder what the standards for excellence says about conflicts of interest, or I wonder what the standards for excellence says about some other area, you can pull it up on your phone and you can be able to see that through the mobile app. Now, the code itself is comprised of 6 sections on the 6 major areas in nonprofit governance and management, and they're supported by 67 performance indicators or benchmarks that describe how well managed and responsibly governed nonprofits operate. Our 6 main areas, well, we start with a preamble, which is aspirational or values-based, and then we move on to mission, strategy, and evaluation, leadership, which focuses on board staff, volunteers, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, legal compliance and ethics, finance and operations, resource development, and public awareness, engagement, and advocacy. The standards set a high bar. They go well above the minimum requirements of the law. They're intended to provide a model for you, for you to strive for. And they reflect consensus around what nonprofit executives know and believe that they should do to have leading organizations. The reality is that few of us implement 100% of these standards, but we all could. Maryland Nonprofits, as an organization that offers the program, we can't award the seal to ourselves for living by all these standards, but I'll let you in on a little secret. We go through the accreditation program and the renewal program on the same cycle that organizations participating do. And 2022 not only is our strategic planning year, but it's also our year to go through standards for excellence renewal. So when you think about these 6 areas and the standards for excellence, which ones do you think your organization is already excelling in? I'm going to put that up as another poll, kind of think about that. And our poll ended a little early last time due to the Zoom gremlin. So check it out quick and vote which sections you think you're already excelling in. All right. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results with you. Can you see the results? Wendy, maybe give me the thumbs up. I can see you. Can't see it.
I think it's because I'm a co-host. I can't see even.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay.
We can see it. We can see it on our end.
I can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it looks like we're excelling all over the place. Look at this. Every area, someone in this group is excelling in the standard. So hats off to all of you. This is terrific. I'm going to stop sharing right at this moment. And you may have to click the box on your screen. So we encourage organizations to take advantage of the Maryland Nonprofits resources so that not only do you know what these benchmarks are, but you can go ahead and you can live by them in your organization without having to reinvent the wheel. So a lot of our training programs, like our Nonprofit Basics series, our Path to Excellence series, they focus on how organizations can live by these standards. Our educational resources, every single item in the standards code is supported by one of these free educational resource packets available to our members. And they include all kinds of models and samples, and those models and samples are provided in Word format, so you can customize them for your use. Our members can also be call Maryland Nonprofits, and we'll provide you with assistance and any questions you have related to the standards as well. So just a few of the resources that folks in our world seem to really like to use in their work. We've got a guide to remote work. You can imagine that was super helpful, especially as folks transition to remote work in many nonprofits. Our model disaster plan, our model employee handbook, those were updated just last year. The legal requirements checklist updated in the last few months. And we've got a great packet on organizational sustainability and sustainability planning, resources on partnerships and mergers, and financial policies as well. So quite a few different resources. This is just a sampling, but every one of the standards is supported by educational resources. For organizations that want to not only implement and live by these standards, you can decide, I want to set my organization apart and I want to earn that seal of excellence. And you can do that by applying for the seal, and that is an opportunity for you to show that you live by all of the standards. Or you could apply for basics or basics enhanced recognition, which are like earlier stages of accreditation. So you can pick which one you'd like to do. There were some notes in the chat, are there costs associated with these? And I saw, Kate, you provided some links for the fee structure. So to access the code, to access the mobile app, there's no fees for any of the educational resources or to call us for help. But if you submit an application, there are fees that are charged on a sliding scale based on the organization's budget size and based on their membership status. And generally our members are paying half the price of what those individuals who are not quite members yet would be paying. Groups decide to do accreditation for a variety of different reasons, including strengthening internal things like their board performance or becoming more sustainable, minimizing their risk and looking for growth opportunities. And certainly a big reason why organizations do this is so that they can put themselves in a good light for those who've never met them before, like folks who maybe are individual donors or foundations or government entities as well. There was a research report published a few years ago that looked at 102 organizations who had been accredited under the standards and compared those with organizations of similar size and mission. And it found that in the months following earning that seal, those groups who had earned the seal of excellence outperformed those who had not earned the seal in terms of their direct public support. So I think that is super helpful as well. Michelle, I see a note that will the slides be provided? I uploaded a PDF of the slides yesterday to the Whova app. So they would be provided there. If you are not part of the conference registrants, you can send me an email and I'm happy to send you those slides, although there may be another opportunity to provide those slides as well, but do keep me posted. So not only do we offer the program through Maryland nonprofits, but we also have membership to folks who are outside of Maryland. If you're a Maryland nonprofits member, you get all this stuff. There's no extra membership required. But if you have a colleague in another state and they might want to also access this, they could become a member of our Standards for Excellence Institute. We also have over 200 people who have been trained as licensed consultants. You can hire a licensed consultant to help you implement various aspects of the standards and maybe even help you put your application together. And then we also work with about a dozen partners that are working all around the country. Some are state associations of nonprofits, some are national groups, and some are regional. And they're working to help strengthen nonprofits, and they use the Standards for Excellence as a model. So I'm going to pause now and take questions. And I see there's a couple questions in the chat. Let's see. Kate, do you know which ones we haven't caught? Or Jeff? I've been trying to keep an eye out, but
You've caught most of the questions. One of the ones is the most recent one. How did the standards differ from Charity Navigator or GuideStar?
Okay, that's a good question. Charity Navigator and GuideStar are they are providing you with an opportunity to share profiles of your organization, and in the variety of benchmarks that are covered in the Standards for Excellence have a broader reach in Standards for Excellence than in, say, GuideStar or Charity Navigator. GuideStar provides this platform for you to highlight all the good things about your organization and to earn what they call transparency seals. where you are providing information to show how transparent you are in your work. And that is a self-directed process where you can say, well, I want to meet this gold transparency level. I want to meet the platinum transparency level. And there's certain items that you need to provide. The Standards for Excellence program, as I mentioned, has a broader array of items and benchmarks. And also the Standards for Excellence program also is not just self-reported, but it is reviewed by our independent reviewers. Our reviews are even on a 3-step review process. Organizations are reviewed by our staff reviewers, team of peer reviewers, and also our Standards for Excellence Council. And you'll hear more from our council chair, Natasha Kavanaugh, who's the director of legal at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And she'll be sharing the awards presentation on Thursday morning. So I think that the programs are quite different because of the benchmarks, because of the way they're offered, and the way that review occurs. I see John has a question. Is there a cost for becoming certified for the Standards for Excellence program? So yes, there is a cost associated with submitting an application. You can open an application through our online system anytime you'd like. But when you hit submit, there is a fee that you would be paying. And we've got that in the chat, a link to the sliding scale fee structure. That's linked to how large your budget is, and it's linked to whether or not you're a member of Maryland Nonprofits. Michelle, I'm not 100% understanding your question about building standards of affiliation. I'm not sure if you might like to take off mute and say a little bit more about that.
Yes, I can. I am part of an organization with affiliated independent centers. So we're on our own of Maryland, but we have wellness and recovery centers throughout the state. They're their own independent nonprofits. However, it's our umbrella name. So we're building standards of affiliation. And so I've looked through the resources on Maryland nonprofits, and they're really helpful. But just wondering if you think that it's still the Standards of Affiliation or Standards of Excellence program is still broad enough that it would be applicable for building standards of affiliation, with meaning like what are the standards for all of these independent nonprofits within our network, or if we would need to gear a different route. This also might be a better question answered privately, which is also okay.
Yeah, I would love it if you would send me an email. Maybe we can have a conversation about that. We do, a couple slides ago, I shared with you that we have partners around the country. So we do have, some of our partners include like Leadership Roundtable and the ARC of the United States, Center for Public Justice, and the American Nurses Association. These national bodies all use the Standards for Excellence to encourage their local organizations. Some are chapter-based organizations, some are other independent affiliates, to be excellent in the way that they govern and manage. So I think it makes sense for me to learn more about the current or the in development standards of affiliation, and whether or not there are programmatic or mission-specific standards within those affiliation agreements or affiliation standards. But do send me an email after the fact. I would love to talk with you more about that, Michelle.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So what are these practices anyway? What is all this about? I'm going to encourage you. Wendy, were you able to get that link, that document?
I sure was. You want me to I'm going to put the PDF first in, and then I'll follow it up with the Word one. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that sounds really great. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So we're going to turn now to a discussion about what's in these standards anyway. And Wendy's going to provide for you in the chat. Thank you so much for doing that.
That's not it. Hold on. Sorry.
And a document that we call the Nonprofit Self-Assessment Checklist. And while you might not fill out the whole self-assessment checklist today, I want to, introduce you to the checklist and encourage you to download it. You can also see it on our Standards for Excellence website under helpful tools. And that I think that this will be helpful for you as you're considering, what might I want to do in my own organization. This checklist is sort of cool because it's color coded. And so if you check everything off on the list that you're doing all of these things, then you're really on your way to becoming accredited, and accreditation might be just great for you. If you find that you're really checking off everything that's in blue, you may be, just ready for that basics recognition. And if you can do all the blues and purples, then maybe you could go right to basics enhanced. So we'll think about that. So the first section in our standards, we start with mission, strategy, and evaluation, where we encourage every nonprofit to have a well-defined mission in place, where that you're planning strategically for your organization, you have a long-term plan, you're evaluating all of your programs, not just the ones that your funders require special evaluation, but all of your programs, and that you're evaluating your programs in a comprehensive way. So you're looking at things like program participant satisfaction, and you're looking at qualitative features and quantitative features, and but you're looking at evaluating for all of those programs. And this section of the standards also looks at strategic partnerships. Lots of times we see nonprofits that sort of give too much away to their partners, and they also find themselves in a position where they're giving too much away to their partners and they can't get out of the partnerships. So we encourage organizations to make sure that they're doing the due diligence on potential partners. They're really considering what they can do, that they have a way to get out of the partnerships if that is something that they'd like to do, and that they've got a process in place that describes what each partner is going to bring to the table. Okay. And so if you were able to pull up that link to the self-assessment, you can kind of breeze through that first section, mission, strategy, and evaluation, and just sort of think about your own organization and how does your own organization live up to these standards. I see Cindy's got a question here. Do you provide consultation, training, support to bring these things into compliance or to meet the standards if they are not? And I would say, yes, we do. And we do that in a variety of ways through the educational resource packages, which are sort of do-it-yourself items. We also do this through our training programs. The Nonprofit Basics series is just a great opportunity to get ready for applying for basics. And it's very structured and goes through a lot of information in 6 sessions. And we'll also answer questions that you have. And when you turn in your application, and Kate, you can fill me in as I'm talking a little bit about this, you turn your application in, once you're reviewed at the staff review level, we'll let you know if we have questions. And once you've got to the peer review level, we'll again ask a follow-up questions of your organization. And you might even find that, you're partway there for a particular standard, and that you may be even making some modifications when you're in the review process. Would you agree with that, Kate? Oh, you're muted. She's shaking her head, yes, like I'm on the right track. Wow, this is funny. I can hear you through the wall, but I can't hear you through the Zoom. So, but that's okay. But I think you're affirming that I'm speaking the truth here on this one. So anyway, I encourage you to check out that self-assessment and check off those items, and then we're gonna move on to leadership. The leadership section of the standards is the most comprehensive. This section of the standards looks at board issues and staff issues and volunteer issues. And I can tell you that when we first started offering the Standards for Excellence program, we kicked off in 1998, we had so many requests from nonprofit leaders that said, this is what I need to give my board of directors. I need them to understand what their roles and responsibilities are, because they are, smart, good-hearted folks that maybe have never served on a board before, or maybe don't know the kinds of things that they need to do to be an excellent board member. And in fact, in the virtual booth in the conference, if you stop by our booth, you can enter a drawing to win a set of standards code books to give to your board of directors. So that would be kind of a good thing as well. But anybody can give a set to their board by just providing the link or providing information to the mobile app. So for boards, again, this is about the most comprehensive section of the whole code. We look at the governance and fiduciary responsibilities of all board members, supervision of the executive director, the board's effectiveness, like the board's job description, the board's evaluation of itself, board term limits, things like that. We look at succession planning and making sure that you've got those individuals in the seats to do the appropriate succession planning. We look at the independence of board members, and we have standards about board meetings as well. The next portion related to leadership is the functions of the executive director of the organization and how that
Did Amy freeze?
Yep.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Okay. It looked like my Zoom was going to just start spinning. If there's any questions, I can touch back on Cindy's question.
I think she was also kicked out mid-sentence.
Yeah.
Wow, I bet you didn't expect an intermission in this class. Goodness. I'm back and I am sorry for that internet interlude. But I think I'm back and I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
No, we just see your beautiful face.
I'll give you my screen again. Awesome. Sorry about that, everybody.
It's not your fault. I think it's we all went down here.
Oh gosh, goodness. Okay.
There it is.
So in our Standards for Excellence Code, the concluding part of the leadership section looks at diversity, equity, and inclusion. We encourage every organization to assess their policies and their practices, their composition and their actions across the board for their organization, coming up with a report and determining where those gaps might be. And then once they've got that in place, coming up with a strategy and a plan to figure out how to address those gaps and how to move the organization forward and to the next level in terms of their diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. I would definitely encourage you to pull down that self-assessment form that I mentioned earlier. And this leadership section is a little bit on the longer section, so it may take you a few minutes to go through. So I would encourage you to do that when you have a moment. And I'm going to pause now and just do another little poll. And this poll is looking at there are so many different educational resources that we have available in related to leadership. And so I thought I would just pause and give you the chance to let me know which one of those packets you're most interested in checking out. Okay, we've got some responses. Thanks, everybody. All right, thanks. This is multiple choice, so you can pick the ones you're most interested in. All right, I'm going to end the poll, and everybody's got to be quick with their fingers on this in this session, right? But we've got set packets on board responsibilities, board and executive partnership, succession planning, board member independence and composition, personnel policies. We updated those just before the pandemic. Organizational sustainability and sustainability planning, updated in the last few months, volunteer policies, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It looks like among all of these, our folks on our call today are interested in all of them. So that's great. They're all available for your use. We'll close that up. And the next section of the standards is the third section, legal compliance and ethics. And so this section, covers the kinds of things you'd expect, that you should maintain legal compliance, that we know that nonprofits have special public disclosure requirements on things like providing copies of your Form 990 upon request, or special statements you need to have on your fundraising materials, things like that. We have a standard around reporting misconduct, having a whistleblower protection policy. Of course, we focus on conflicts of interest, and our standards also looks at having a code of ethics in place as well. So I'm going to turn now to a really brief case study. And I thought I'd see if somebody might be interested in reading that. Maybe Kate or Jeff.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so you are a new board member of a nonprofit in your small town. In the group's annual tax form, the Form 990, you learn that 7 of the 12 voting members of the board have business relationships with the organization. A few of the examples include: 1 provides printing services, 1 is the landlord for the organization's office, 1 is the vendor for the background checks, 1 owns the venue where the organization has its gala, that had its gala last year, 1 provides liability insurance coverage, 1 provides the public relations services for the organization, and 1 provides maintenance services for the vehicles of the organization. The 990 includes a statement for each situation that services were provided at or below fair market value by the vendor/board member. Does a conflict of interest exist here? If so, what is the conflict and how could it be avoided?
What I'd like to do now is send us off to breakout rooms just for a few moments. And I see that we've got 140 people present. So why don't we make 35 breakout rooms perhaps, and send those out randomly, and we'll be brief. We'll be at 5 minutes.
Right?
Do that?
And it'll automatically
You know what?
assign.
Why don't we forego the breakout rooms right at this moment? And I'm gonna just see if anybody'd like to raise their hand. And if you'd like to share any comments that you might have, maybe we'll take 1 or 2 comments. All right, I'm looking at anybody have their hand raised?
Repeat what you just said.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is if anyone has any comments to make about this little case study.
Yes, I would say there's a conflict of interest.
You would, it's a conflict of interest.
Yes.
It doesn't look very good. Yeah.
No.
Agree.
And the gala is kind of like in a gray area, if that's an in-kind gift, a board member might make that, but the rest of them, yeah, they breach the line of compensation that you're not supposed to really give the board of directors, but it's doing business with them, so it's also in a gray area.
Well, I would say that all of these are listed on the Form 990. So all of these are situations where the organization has expended funds to a board member, as opposed to things that are contributions per se.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to be. You could be either or. Either you're on the board or you're on the other. That's what I think. So you're not supposed to be on the board and also be getting business on the side. So I guess it depends on if it's been disclosed and whatever their conflict of interest too.
So organizations certainly handle these kinds of things in different ways. Every group should have a conflict of interest policy for sure, and there should be a way to disclose potential conflicts, and the individuals who are could benefit and they're leaders of the organization, they should not be part of the decision making on that particular transaction. A very similar thing like this happened about 20 years ago in one of the counties in the Baltimore metro area. Some of you might remember there were a couple of articles in the Baltimore Sun about this. And the organization was a small organization, had a small board, but more than half the board members had contracts with the organization. And our executive director at the time said, hey, it looks like you could use a new conflict of interest policy. Would you like us to help you with that? And their response was, we have a conflict of interest policy, and we used it as we were determining that we wanted to have contracts with all of these board members. So no thanks, Maryland nonprofits, we're good. But I think there's also the issue of kind of optics here. And it looks like it's a conflict of interest, even if they follow their whole conflict of interest policy. The other part, the other words on here that I'm going to call your attention to is this: the services were provided at or below fair market value. So I feel like that's an important comment to mention as well. I think that there are many times when a board member might provide something to an organization, and I'd want to see the board member provide it below market value every time, because I know it's going to be listed on my 990. I know it's going to have to be disclosed to the public. Wouldn't you feel better about it if you could say provided below fair market value rather than just the same thing that they would charge any other individual or person? All right, so we're going to hold that for now. The big encouragement is every nonprofit should have a conflict of interest policy and statement. Folks should fill out a questionnaire every year, and they should be under a continuing obligation to disclose their interests. And nonprofits should think about what this looks like to the public as well. Following the policy and also thinking about what it looks like to the public. Some organizations will not do business with board members. It's not illegal to do business with board members in most cases, but it is something that is publicly available, and it's shared with the whole public through that Form 990. So we're going to also then look at the next section of the standards, finance and operations. In this section of the standards, we look at the kinds of things you'd expect: having a budget in place that's approved before the start of the fiscal year, quarterly financial reporting, financial policies, administrative policies on things like communications and social media and disaster preparedness. And this part of the standards also looks at risk management and insurance as well. This is another sort of fun case study. In this case, that you're serving as associate director of a medium-sized organization. While you're visiting one of the locations, you find that they don't have face masks and they don't have hand sanitizer. And so you run out to the store and you buy a year's supply of these things and you leave it at the store, and you do not follow any of the normal channels for financial, for purchasing. Is that a problem? What do you think? Is that a problem?
Not unless you're trying to get money back from it.
If you want to be reimbursed, might be a problem if you're not following the rules.
It could be a donation, but you're not going to get anything on your taxes for it.
Well, I suppose if you're donating something and you're not getting anything in return, you could have a in-kind donation, but let's say you wanted to get it reimbursed. Many things sort of kind of jump out at me. That you bought a year's supply. Maybe you really just needed to buy enough for that day or that week or that month. A year's supply is a pretty long time, and gosh, how long are we going to be in face masks, and how long are we going to need gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer? It's hard to tell. So we think about following those purchasing policies. Sometimes we might need to get something to fill in a gap, but don't feel like that you should throw away those purchasing policies and buy so many and then expect that kind of reimbursement. Yeah, thank you, Manju. I think that's a good point. So when we think about these standards, I'm also going to mention the fifth section of the standards is resource development. And while the board section I think is the most comprehensive, I'd say the second most comprehensive section is resource development. And we look here at having a resource development plan, great sources of income that are outlined for you, then making sure that you are raising money in a way that is in keeping with donor privacy, that you are doing things in a way that is appropriate, and where you're never putting the individuals who you serve in a tough situation in that fundraising. They have a policy for accepting gifts, and that if someone else is raising money on your behalf, that you're ensuring that you're doing that in a way that's following all the rules and the laws and things like that. The last section in our standards looks at public awareness, engagement, and advocacy. And here we focus on providing information to the public that's available upon request, and also available by download and things like that, like your annual report. We talked about the Form 990, things like that. And this section of the standards also reinforces the idea that all nonprofits can engage in advocacy and lobbying work, and that you should have an advocacy policy in place that determines what policies you're going to get involved with and the process that you're going to take. And then making sure that your organization is staying strictly nonpartisan in all of its work, ensuring that it is not endorsing candidates or endorsing political parties. I know that we are running toward 4 o'clock, and so I wanted to just pause on just a few final items. Definitely encourage you to consider getting to know the standards for excellence. Encourage you to consider standards for excellence accreditation or recognition at one of the levels, knowing that there's a lot of benefits that you would receive by going through the process. And I want to focus on this quote from Executive Director of Valley Medical Center Foundation, which is actually a group in Silicon Valley, describing their benefits that they have received following earning the seal. And then I'm going to also mention, if you do earn that seal of excellence, you can promote it to the individuals and organizations who don't know you very well through your grant proposals. You can address it in the form Schedule O of the Form 990. It's listed on GuideStar, and you can. We also give you a public relations kit to use it in the materials that you are sharing with the public and with your stakeholders. So with that, I'm going to pause and take any questions that people have at the end. And if you'd like to list if you've had any aha moments today, to include those in the chat as well.
Nico, I see you have your hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, Nico.
Thank you very much, Kate. I appreciate the acknowledgement. And thank you very much, Amy, for this presentation. It's been very informative. I did have a question when you talked about political and fundraising and endorsing candidates. As a nonprofit, is there something that's improper to donate to a candidate or attend a fundraising event?
If you were doing that on behalf of the nonprofit, using the nonprofit's resources, that is improper, and that would be considered endorsing the candidate. People can do things as individuals, but certainly you wouldn't say, oh, so-and-so is running for city council. Our nonprofit is going to buy tickets for everybody on our board or all the leadership of the organization to attend their fundraiser. You would not be able to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll also mention that coming soon, we're going to have a new online self-assessment where you'll be able to answer a series of questions and then get a report that shows how your organization implements the standards and addresses which of our resources you may find most useful as you move to the next step. Any other questions that anybody might have? My contact information is on this last slide.
And I am also putting my email in the chat. If anybody has questions about actually applying or starting an application or what's involved in that, please feel free to reach out to me as well.
Thanks, Kate.
Yep.
And the applications are submitted online. They're an online application. And we're always looking for folks to help us review these applications. And that's a great way to get to know the process a little bit better as well, to become a volunteer peer reviewer. And Kate coordinates that as well. So keep her email handy. And if you'd like to get involved in that, we would love to have your involvement. Oh, someone missed the link to the self-assessment checklist. Maybe we could provide that link again. I'm not sure if Wendy's still on. Kate.
I'm here. What do you need?
I got
The link. Oh, we've got it. The link to the self-assessment checklist. We're good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, I just wanted to share an announcement that we will have tonight a speed networking session as well as a trivia night. Both of those events are accessible.
Heather, we just lost you for a second.
I think she was going to say via the app. So you can go into Hoover and go ahead and sign and join in through the app.
And then after that speed networking is trivia night.
So much fun.
Really terrific. All right, everybody. I
Heather
hope
was
that
also going to say, oh, are you back, Heather? I think I got a note from another organizer, conference organizer, that said if you're not signed up for speed networking, you would have had to already sign up. But please, anybody pop on to trivia at 5:30. It's going to be a lot of fun. Join us through the app. It's super, lots of laps.
And Michelle asked to provide, oh, thanks, Patty, to provide the app name here. So when you registered for the conference, you would have gotten a link to the app if you're a paid registrant for the program.
And it's not too late to register, and we do have a discount code for 10% off your registration. It's FRIEND10, and I just put that in the chat. So if you're so inspired at the last minute to join us, we'd love to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. And is that the right time, 4 to 5 and 5 to 6? I thought it was.
No, it's well,
4:30 and
on my
5:30.
slide, I have that speed networking is at 4:30 and trivia night is at 5:30.
Excellent. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope that you have a great rest of the day.
Have a great rest of the
And for those
conference.
coming to the conference, yeah, we'll see you tonight. And also opening plenary tomorrow starts at 9 a.m. It's so great to see you all here for our pre-conference. We really appreciate you. Great dialogue today. Thank you. And thank you, Amy. I always learn something new about the standards. Thank you. Fantastic presentation.